Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Darren. Good to see you, bro. Uh, wow, what a morning. Um, all I can say is, I think, in light of the most of the uh, most, but not all of the socio-political unrest resolving itself finally to its conclusions. At least for me, that resulted in a bit of a decompression, and I crashed about 8 o'clock last night, and I think I briefly woke up around 4 in the morning, but I didn't stay awake and slept right through till about 8 this morning. So I got about 12 hours of sleep last night. I really, really needed to back off from the socio-political conversation, and glad to be doing so. I actually think it's time for me for a real refocus and reboot. I'm kind of officially into the new year now, finally, and saying that I really want to focus my energy on creating cartoons, creating intellectual property out of nothing through the process of writing, animating, scoring, voice acting. Let's just have fun. And I want to say, I won't keep this promise necessarily, but my thought is, as of today, I'd like to relegate my socio-political commentary, at least on this channel, and I don't really have any other channels that I'm actively working with, um, relegate it to stories. You know, if I have something to say, let's say it within a story. And here, let's focus firmly and squarely on telling stories with animation. Now, that, by the way, introduce the question of what makes my channel different than the other guy's channel, different from AMB, different from Ed Tadeo, different from Howard Wimshurst, different from you, my friend Darren T. And the difference is, I want my focus to be squarely on the practical process of how do you get from a cool idea to an actual property that ostensibly you can bring to the marketplace and build up a little cottage industry for yourself. I gotta say, I'm really sure that most of the people that tune into my channel, that's not why they're here. Probably. I'm sure they're probably here because of animation in particular, and that's perfectly understandable. Yesterday, I kind of made the command decision to, as you can see here, just I invited a bit of a straw poll among the people in the chat to say, hey, should we move? I think it was after I did this shot here. I'm like, okay, should we go ahead and do the ink and paint, or just focus on a pencil test? And there were only 2 votes, I think, but the basic consensus was, let's do pencil tests. And that didn't surprise me either. I think that if I was tuning into this channel, that's kind of the thing I want to see. That's the most cool and most fun. There's something about this, about pencil tests, that are very appealing, and a certain amount of the charm is lost when you go ahead and do ink and paint, well, like we have here. But at the end of the day, it's all got to be done because the broader audience, it's not, yeah, I mean, when OBS is disconnecting, at this point, it looks like it stays disconnected only for about 15 seconds. So that's definitely an improvement over what we used to see. So I think that when we get around to doing ink and paint on these shots, it's going to be interesting, because I think what I'll probably do is put the color down and see to what degree I'm able to do, what we call cleanup, and actually take the pencil test and turn it into the ink lines by basically doing probably some curve operations, and then maybe a little bit of judicious tracing over. But that'll be definitely interesting to see what we can do. But so the good news from yesterday is 4 hours, I think, live streaming total, yielded 30 seconds of show, which is quite good. But probably not quite good enough because the ink and paint hasn't been done. So, but I'm going to keep moving forward at this point with bringing the content from the storyboard into Krita and turning the storyboard images into animatic / pencil tests so that more and more we can actually see the show emerging before our eyes. And so let's jump back down to here and say where we're going to start. We did the shot with the monkey yesterday, so the next shot involves Mel. That's number 307. So up here on the storyboard, there's number 307. We will drag that into Krita. And first thing I'm going to do actually is Control M and see if I can maybe make the lines on the pencil test a little bolder. Okay, so now I want to think about what I want to think about is actually two things. Let me see here. I'm going to jump back up here and say, okay, Mel, yeah, we have this shot, and then we're going to this, so I'm just looking at whether there's anything here that, you know, the reality is that reuse is probably less of a thing when we're dealing with pencil tests. Once you got the color and ink baked in, it's a little more plausible to just basically take the finished character and drag it into Krita and then animate it. But I would say in this case, what we have, and I need to change our frame rate to 8, add a layer, and then save our work so that we immediately have this storyboard image saved as a Krita file. Okay, so looking at the script, sorry about that. We have, again, I mentioned this the other day, but a little conflict between our hotkeys. I need to change my OBS hotkey that switches screens. F12 ain't working so good. Okay, so he says studying is not so bad. At least we've got food to eat. He reaches for some nuts in the bowl, but it's empty. He stops short, then looks over at Monkey, who guiltily stops chewing. Okay, so that's where we're at. I probably should put a break there so that we're clear. Okay, does that make sense, folks? So Monkey guiltily stops chewing. He's actually about to throw a, I guess what kind of nut is that? I guess a walnut actually is what it looks like. Okay, and Mel, what I'm thinking we're doing is this is kind of a traditional anime-ish effect where he's going to kind of blink one eye. So that'll be, I wanted it here, it's going to be more fun to see it in motion. But what he's doing is he's looking back, sees the monkey, and then he kind of goes blink, blink, and then you're going to see him wheel around. That's what this circle here is for. This is basically a tween. So he's going to wheel around and then fall down onto his book. Now, there is a problem here with what I have written versus what's in the storyboard. It's have him fall down. Let's just redraw that right now. I'm going to take 308 and fix it so that there's no question. Okay, yeah, and actually this is really the pose that I was thinking of. Now that's going to require some pretty subtle acting. If I land him here, then everything we convey about his attitude has to happen pretty much vis-a-vis his facial expression. So it's going to be some pretty subtle acting. Okay, because if you take this is actually what I was just thinking about was, let me redraw this one to fix that. So I'm going to bring this down into Krita as a new document. Let's jump back down here, and then so what's going to go on here is let's just hit Control F so it repeats the curves operation I just did to just make this a little bolder picture. So here, go like this so that his weight is firmly on this elbow. GE again to get rid of this. BE, so it's again the brush but not in erase mode. And I'm just going to change this expression so that he's leaning on his hand like this. So now he's of course got his little wrist wraps. So when he falls down into this position, he's going to be something like this, elbow here. So we really want to convey his weight. Let the weight push his elbow up, or his shoulders up a bit like that. Okay, trying to move quickly here. That's something I'm working on. I'm working on really being vivid in my mind with what I'm visualizing and then getting it down as efficiently as possible. It's the simple principle that it's way more both efficient and effective to fix something that's wrong than to try to get it right the first time. So therefore, I'd rather whip it down here as fast as I can and then maybe move on to something else, come back to it and say, oh, wait, I can see now where that could be improved a little bit, and then do so as the situation and need arises. So this expression's okay, but I don't quite know what I was thinking about his attitude here, because I don't think that attitude is quite right. It's amazing what you can accomplish with a couple eyebrows. It really is just crazy how much you can do with the eyebrows. So okay, so we've got that. And I would say that's definitely a more I was going to say an accurate rendering of the attitude we're after. I'm actually going to make one more change. As I'm looking at this, I'm going to say, in terms of framing, it's probably just a little bit large. He's crowding the screen a little bit. You want to be, you don't have to recognize what they used to call the safe area. That's not really a thing anymore, anywhere near as much as it used to be, because we're not dealing typically. That is caught off because you're really, or I should say cut off, because you're trying to really make an impression with their eyes, let's say. You know, there's a time for that, but it's actually kind of unusual. So here, what I'm going to say is, actually this is kind of interesting as I'm doing this. It's kind of like almost as if, you know what? I just gave myself an idea. I am going to have him fall like this. And then, actually, I think I'm going to have him do that. I'm going to have him rub his own elbow or arm. That's interesting. I never would have. I've kind of noticed this a couple times when I've been working in Krita, that sometimes when you just grab the transform tool and just move a selection around, a lot of times it gives you ideas about the animation. And not only that, it really can help you plan, because you can see exactly what the audience is going to see once it's animated. You know, so let's just see if this kind of sort of works. So if I grab this whole area, and so look at what he's saying. Oops, where's the center? There it is. So what he's saying is, yeah, I guess there's always somebody who has it worse than me. That's what he's saying. That kind of word. Let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to hit the Control S and just go ahead and save this particular storyboard image. And so now we've got both of these saved and ready to go. So that's kind of an interesting little insight, right? Okay. So here, what I want to do is I'm actually going to take this layer back out. Let me see if I want to check something here. If I have a selection and then I hit S. Okay, good news, folks. I did not know this until right now. Up until now, what I've been doing is, when I want to make sure that I take a ping image, which is this is just a standard ping in my storyboard, and I want to save it, but I also want Krita to save it. I want it to be saved as a ping so that in my storyboard the drawing updates. Hey, good morning, Steve. However, I also want Krita to save it as a Krita file at the same time, because then I that preserves all my layers, it preserves my animation timeline, all that stuff. So I get the benefit of saving it in both formats at the same time. Up until this very moment, what I've always done is just create a dummy layer, because if there isn't a second layer in there, like right now if I hit Control S, it'll probably just save it. Well, or at least what it does is it's going to save it as a ping. It doesn't, as you can see right here, it doesn't give me the option to save it as a Krita file. So what I've done is I've just added a dummy layer, and then Krita because ping images don't have multiple layers, right? So then when I hit Control Save, the flattened image gets saved as a ping, but it also saves it as a Krita file. Okay? Well, I'd prefer to not have to have the dummy image until I really want it in there. Well, what I just saw and realized, and I may be explaining in a very verbose way that's annoying to some of you out there, is that just grab a selection. Hit the S key and lasso a selection, and then hit Control Save. Because guess what? A ping image can't have a selection either, and Krita treats a selection as actually a thing. It's basically an invisible layer. So that's cool. One less thing, right? Okay, so I'm going to hit Control-Shift-A so there is no selection, and then what I'm going to do is hit the A key, and I basically just want to center up Mel here, and I think make him maybe a little bigger in the frame. Okay, so that's really my shot. This stuff over here is just tweening to get me back out of the shot. Okay, so the actual drawing of Mel, hit the B key and just, I really like this. The reason I like sticking to one layer if I possibly can is that it really keeps you focused squarely on the most important thing, which is drawing. Anything that's not drawing is kind of a distraction from drawing, obviously. Okay, GE, let's just erase that for now. And what I'm going to do is I want to get this initial expression in here. I'm going to just kind of draw a little lighter. His nose, I think, is slightly high. So it took me a long time, by the way, to figure out how you could do lasso erasing in Krita. I didn't even realize you could do it until, I don't know, a month ago or something. Because you can in OpenToonz. It's one of the things I really like about OpenToonz is you can be drawing along and then you just hit the E key and boom, draw a lasso and it erases. Of course, there's many other ways to erase as well, but in Krita you just go GE, because what you're really doing, what you're actually doing, is you're drawing a shape, but you're drawing the shape in erase mode. So I've been finding myself hitting BE, GE, and back and forth. Like, I do that constantly. Constantly. Okay, I'm checking the messages. There are no messages. There's nothing going on out there, so that's cool. So what we want to do is just get a fair and accurate rendering of Mel. You say, well, this is kind of a long curve. There's no way you're going to do that without your arm wiggling a little bit. So for me, I'm going to hit the Q key, which for me, and not for you, because this is not a default hotkey in Krita, but for me, it's been mapped to the smoothing tool. Or I should say the smoothing option, which takes your brush and adds smoothing to it. Frankly, in recent days, I don't actually use smoothing that much, but if I've got to deal with something like this, that's kind of a, you know, my arm's going to have to sweep across the screen quite a distance, then without a doubt the smoothing does help. No, that's not quite right. Given a choice, I prefer the stabilizer to the weighted smoothing, but there's multiple different types of smoothing available to you, so you can try them all and see what you like. I'm a stabilizer guy, personally. Your mileage may vary. Okay, so let me pull out here just a little bit, and actually, this is one of those cases. I'm going to hit Alt-Q to turn the stabilizer back off. Okay, this is one of those cases where, and I've been finding this to be true more and more, is that if I look at this guide, right, and I'm not crystal clear on what I want to draw next, usually it's best to just do this. Just get the heck rid of it. Because then I can really just think clearly without the distraction of the other lines that may in fact be pulling me off kilter a little bit. Okay, in Mel's case, we got a little indication of the hair down here. And believe it or not, this hair stuff has been, oh boy, I would say by far the most difficult thing about Mel is getting his hair right. Seems kind of silly, but it's true. A little bit silly, a little bit true. His hair has gone through more than one sort of iteration of what it's supposed to look like. And even here, actually, this is kind of interesting. I'm going to hit the A key, which is the transform tool, and I'm going to take my whole drawing and just do that a little bit. Sometimes when you're, because of your handedness, like in my case I'm right-handed, you'll discover that you have a proclivity to always distort your drawings in a certain way. Tends to always be the same way. And it is, like I say, it's because of your handedness. So for me, I tend to slant things in a certain direction unless I'm really careful. Now if you hit the M key and keep bouncing between flipping your canvas, you will tend not to have that problem nearly as much, because you've given yourself a fresh perspective. Every time you flip that canvas, you're sort of seeing it clean. So actually, that's not quite right. As I recall, his attire in the current scene has a little bit lower neckline. Okay, so here, the way I drew it, I guess I'll stick with that. Boom. Okay, so now I want to clean this up. Frankly, this doesn't matter because I know what I'm going to do. In fact, actually, for this shot, I'll probably just do a flip of his head, and then the tween's going to be pretty well blurred out anyway. So that means I'm going to go Control Insert. So now, again, this is my personal conceit, is trying to sort of keep things on a single layer if I can. That may not be your idea of a good time. You may be more like Ed Tadeo, who likes to have lots of layers. I have no problem with that. It's purely a choice of how you like to work. For me, if I can keep things relegated to a single layer most of the time, I just like keeping things clean. In fact, truthfully, last week I did some pencil test work in version 1 of my paint, specifically because it's got such a clean interface. There's literally nothing on the screen except the canvas, you know, unless you really have to change brushes. And then I would just hit Control C and then paste the drawing into Krita, you know. So that's a valid approach. It really doesn't matter what your approach is. Hey Max, and that's why I've sort of ranted a bit about the futility, the questions I always get about software. And my answer increasingly is use whatever software you want, because you know what, it doesn't matter, especially if you're not actually doing anything. If you're not doing anything, the best software in the world doesn't help you. And if you're drawing a lot and putting together stories and actually getting some work done, you discover that the software, again, doesn't matter, because you're going to get a pretty good job done with whatever software you use. And so it truly becomes mostly a question of what you enjoy using, you know. Because, yeah, I mean, let's face it, this is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to do animation. So actually having fun, somewhat non-intuitively, I guess, turns out to maybe be the most important thing. But I suppose the same thing could be said about life. Oops, there I go getting philosophical again. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so I'm going to hit Control M, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to see what the cleanup preset does. You're going, well, Dave, what's the cleanup preset? Okay, the cleanup preset is simply a flat curve, but in the alpha layer, or alpha channel, I just have a default curve that just does this a little bit. And what it does is it takes takes any lines that I've drawn that are semi-transparent and turns them fully transparent. So it literally gets rid of guidelines and everything. And sometimes it gets you shockingly close to finished ink. Whoops, that was a boo-boo. I need to be in erase mode. Usually it doesn't, unless when you were drawing with that in mind. Actually, if you do that, meaning that, in other words, when I'm sketching, I say, well, I know I want to keep that line, and so I really drill it in there like that, right? Really dark, because I know I'm going to do that cleanup step. Now in OpenToonz, as Darren will testify. Well, you know what? Let me look at the messages here. Hey, Wojciech. I know you hate multiple layers, but isn't it quicker to draw your ink on a new layer than just delete the sketch layer? You don't have to erase pencil lines bit by bit. Okay, I would say this. Quicker? Yeah, probably. It probably is quicker. Quicker enough to really give a rip? Depends. Depends. I'm just kind of... How do I put this? Yeah, okay, so what I don't want to do is lead you guys down the primrose path. So to answer Darren's question, yes. I think for most people, most of the time, without a doubt, it's better to have at least a couple layers. I mean, my general practice has been to have a pencil test, ink, color, and shadows. At least those 4 layers. And the only reason, stupid as it sounds, the only reason not to have all those layers is because of the extra 10 seconds it takes me to go ahead and put in all the keyframes, you know, which means hit insert 4 times. You know? So yeah, you're correct, Darren. It's, for the most part, it's better to work on at least a couple layers, and it's not at all difficult to keep your work on an easily manageable small number of layers. And then when you've got multiple characters and they all need to have a group of layers, then what you do is you just excuse me, you just duplicate the group, and if you're willing to do so, just flatten it out. Or you can also minimize the group just so you can't see it. Like if this was a group, if I put this in a group, Control G, I can take the group, lock it, and close it down and minimize it. So at least it's not taking up a ton of space here in the layer list. So all in all, yes, without a doubt, working in, as I say, at least a modest number of multiple layers is, darn it, I just did it again, I gotta hit the E key, is, I'm sure, the better practice. Seeing how quickly I can do it. Can I do it more quickly that way? I would say the bottom line at this moment is that if I have to spend like much time at all doing what I'm doing right now, which is taking the pencil test and cleaning it up, then sticking to one layer just turned into a loss, not a gain. Because that cleanup step that's where all the time goes, actually. All the time goes to zooming in and going, oh man, I got an erroneous line right there. Right? So. Okay, so what are we doing here? What we're actually doing is we're doing the quintessential blink blink effect. Just really see this. Really see it. I know, I'm sitting here making faces. Okay. Okay, so now this, importantly, I'm going to hit GE again, and this time I'm just getting rid of the eyebrows. Okay, so now here's a case where I'm redrawing something. Again, if I was working in multiple layers, I wouldn't have had to redraw this eyebrow. And frankly, it's a little debatable. Some people would actually say that your cartoon's going to look better if you have to redraw it because it gives a little bit of a life to the drawing. I don't know if I agree with that. I'm like, obviously I just had to redraw it again, so now it's turning into a tiny bit of a time cost. So and I'll tell you a big reason for that is that the first time I draw it, I just go vroom, I just one line and whatever I draw, it's like, okay, that looks about right. The second time I draw, I have to match the first one. So now this becomes a real mechanical process, whereas the first one is just an instinctive process. So you're actually talking about two fundamental different mindsets when you draw the lines. I know that's going a little deep, probably, but it is true. Okay, so anyway, I had to make this match, and my thinking is we're going to duplicate that so we have essentially this. Whoops. Blink, blink. Okay. I'm trying to think now. You guys will have to forgive me because I have to. I know you're after efficiency, but you delete the sketch line afterward. You still only have one layer, but you've been deleting pencil sketches for a few minutes now. Yeah, and to be fair, one reason why I work a lot slower when I'm talking. That is a fact. I've noticed that, especially the last few days since I've been doing tons of live streaming. So it's kind of my own fault. Well, let's agree that maybe the quest for efficiency at any cost is not really as much my goal anymore as it used to be. Okay, what I'm going to do is, okay, we like that. I'm going to see if actually going to another closed eye feels better. I don't know if I'm getting the effect. Boink, boink. Don't know if I'm getting the effect I was after. I'm going to take this and actually switch this back to that. I've seen this and I just don't have any idea what the pattern is. So I'm going to just play around and allow myself a moment to experiment. BE. And then just for kicks and giggles, I'm actually going to take the brows and furrow them a bit, like so. Yeah, again, I'll just put the whole layers argument to bed by saying that generally having multiple layers is better than not. Okay, I don't like the wink, so I'm going to actually just get rid of, I'll replace it with this. Let me think about this for half a second. He sees monkey. I don't like two blinks. Two blinks is not working. And maybe a little longer. Let me try that. Okay, that's actually not bad. I don't know that it's perfect, but it's not bad. Looking at the comments. Okay, so he's going to go. Bing, bing. Let me put it close and see what happens. I'm going to go like this and try another change in attitude just to see how it feels. Just to see how it feels. And I have a suspicion that this is going to be a win. But we'll see. Okay, what if we just take this out? Maybe make that slightly closer. Bling. There you go. There's your show. I mean, there's your shot. Okay, so with that, watch this. We're going to do some crazy, crazy tweening stuff right now. We're going to go boom like this. Grab his head. Okay, so what's going to happen here is this is all going to go by much too slowly. I can pretty much guarantee you. So we're going to get the essential tweening going on, and then we're going to have to make a bunch of corrections, but that's okay. We're going to get this. We're going to nail this, baby. Okay, stop. I don't really want that there. I really want it more anchored there. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're actually going to delete all this stuff. This is all in the wrong position. The only thing that actually is going to hold between these shots, or cells I guess, is going to be pretty much the shape of his head. Okay, so I'm actually going to get rid of that as well. Probably should save my work, and I need a selection. Save. Boom. Okay. B key. Just gonna not be in erase mode. I'm gonna go like this because he's kind of whipping around. Obviously all of this is erroneous. That's erroneous. Almost everything actually. Let's just get rid of all of it. And we're making a rapid tween here, so let's just kind of have fun with it. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. See something going on over here. Hey, you know, Maria. Hey, Maria. From me as well. You know, Maria, you made it. I remember Maria. I remember seeing you. Rats. It's been a few months, I think. But yeah, I remember seeing you somewhere. I don't know if it was on one of my live streams or somebody else's. Could have been Darren's. I don't know. But always happy to see people showing up. Okay, so S key, boom, 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 boom. A. Let's just squish that in a little bit. Got a little bit of a problem right here. So let's fix that. So because I was zoomed in too far, I sort of lost perspective on the shape of his head. So this is really a rapid tween. You could actually almost stretch his eyes and it'd probably look fine. So again, this is all going by really fast. So here's the basic attitude. Since okay, was it Darren's? Yeah, it probably was. So since we are going to let's just kind of recap what we're seeing go on here. So I guess particularly because what have we got? Yeah, we got 8 viewers. So there's probably some people have popped in who don't really have the context here. So so we got where'd they go kind of thing, and then he has a sneaking suspicion, and boom, monkey's getting ready to eat one of the walnuts. He's embarrassed, and now this is where we're at on this shot. So what we're getting is Mel's basic reaction to monkey. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. So this is his reaction. Hopefully it doesn't suck too bad. Okay. So this, again, this all happens too slowly. So this tween right here is unnecessary. And this one is way too close to the last one. We actually want to go like this. You know what, frankly, I think I'm getting rid of this too. This is a real boom. We're quite literally going to have this on the screen for 1 frame, and then we'll be cutting to this shot where he falls into the situation. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and why don't I just at least take a moment to render it. I guess having that second layer in there, by the way, is probably a good thing, because otherwise I have to keep remembering to put in a selection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just merge this group. So now there's my 1 layer, and then And by the way, back to the subject of layers, obviously you're going to have the background. Any way you slice it, you're going to have a bunch of layers anyway. So probably the most balanced approach is to allow your character to exist on a few layers, typically pencil test, ink, color, and shadows. Put them in a group, and then if you're really concerned about saving your screen real estate or your scenes getting complicated, then just close the group and or lock it. But anyway, there we go. So this is shot number 307. So let's render it, Control R. And we certainly don't want 100 frames. So let's back off here just a little bit. We're literally gonna end this here. I'll let it run to 36. I'll give it an extra frame or two, just in case there's some insane reason why we want that. But yeah, this is going to be a this is going to be a one frame tween. To be clear, when this gets rendered, I mean when this gets cut into the show, because the show runs at 24 frames a second and the animations run at 8, each cell is actually running on this screen for 3 frames. So with this shot, it's kind of unusual that when this tween happens, ostensibly this would be on the screen for 3 frames. I may actually cut it to 1 or 2. So it's going to really be close to my edit point. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so this is shot, what, 307? Yes, so I'm going to go delete that, change that to a 7. Hello, got to get my finger on the right key. Delete that and change it to a 7. That's going to render. Let's jump up to Vegas. And we'll just slide this downstream. Let's bring in 307, cut it into the show, and then we'll get the next shot done. So we're rocking and rolling here. 36 frames, again at 8 frames per second. There it is. We drag it in, turn off resampling, which I won't explain at the moment. Some of you guys probably already know what that is. And there's a bit of a problem down here. Layers. And so when I go like this, I lose my white background because this image is actually transparent. So what I need to do is do it this way. Come on, right there. So there's the tween, and I'm just going to run that right up to there and see how that works. Okay, yeah, we didn't even see it. I'm going to add one more frame. Yeah, that's what I'm going to want. I'm just going to want 1 frame, maybe 2. I'll add an extra one just to see, but I think even it's going to be 1. All we need is just something to indicate he's in motion. And truthfully, this shot probably wasn't needed. It could have actually been, in fact, maybe arguably should have been. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually change this and see if it looks better. Here's what I'm going to do. My basic thinking here is I just want to sense that he's in motion. That's really all I want for this tween. Because what I'm doing is I'm easing out. Instead of putting in a standard tween, I'm doing an ease out situation. So yeah, actually I think this is going to be better. And the key to the next shot is that he's not in the frame when we cut to the shot. So you see here, just a little motion, and it's actually, I would say, 1 frame too many. So I just don't want to digest anything other than just the sense that there's been some motion. Yeah. Okay, so now when we get to this shot, if he's not in the frame, I think it'll work quite well. So crazy enough, once again, it turns out that all the time I spent drawing that tween was wasted. So that's okay. Live and learn, baby. All right, so we'll get rid of that for now. We can always come back to it. Okay, so here, what we're going to do is we'll follow the Darren Truman School of Animation, and we'll go ahead and put this in a layer, and we'll call this PT for pencil test, and we'll add an ink layer. We'll add I'm only doing this so that you guys all can see what my normal practice would be. Normally what I do is I leave the pencil test um, I leave the pencil test on top, but then partially transparent, so I can just see it. Then I put the ink on the next layer, the colors under that, and then typically the shadows are going to be over everything, over top of everything, and the shadow layer is going to be alpha locked so that you can draw your shadows in any shape you want, and they're never going to go outside the lines. So there's your character. So we'll call this Mel. This is actually going to be quite an interesting shot. And then just for the record, typically there's also going to be another layer that's going to be the background. And then oftentimes this gets put in a group and winds up having multiple layers, and I just sort of interactively build it up, dial it in, and then bake it down to a single layer. So I hope that all helps and makes clear what the heck is kind of the normal practice. So now what about this shot? Well, the first step usually with this stuff is to insert a keyframe. Now if I hit the insert key, it's going to erase what's already there. So I hit Control Insert to insert a key. Okay? And now this is going to be definitely interesting. His destination, and by the way, this should be 8 frames a second, so there. This is his destination. So I'm going to work backwards with 1 frame like this. And let me think about this for a moment. I'm going to maybe, and by the way, everything I'm doing here, I'll be able to take a single image that was inked and colored and do all this on a single image. So this is all just for my information, so I remember what to do after the ink and paint is done. So in other words, most of the animation in this shot is all going to be one single drawing. Okay, hope that makes sense. S key, all I'm doing here is taking his body parts and splaying them out a little bit and scrunching them down so that he bounces back up into this. Got it? Okay, so now I'm going to go back here, select all, and what I need is actually this to be here, and now I'm going to draw an arc like this. I'm going to say, okay, he's actually going to fall in here, and we'll kind of point him in that direction. Okay, is this going to work? Yes, other than this tween should actually be here, I think. Yep. Okay, so what we're going to see is we're going to see 2 frames of nothing followed by him falling into frame. Now remember what we're coming out of. We're coming out of this single tween, right? Boom. We just have this tiny brief sense of motion. All right, so let's do this. And so what we're discovering right now, this is actually the lesson, the takeaway from this, because I think this is actually going to work pretty well. We'll do this as, this is actually a long shot. I'm going to, let me think. Okay, I'm going to take a pause and look at the script. So let's change this to falls to the ground. I had to change it because it's the monkey who's looking at the book, not Mel. So Mel scowls, then rolls his eyes, falls to the ground, pondering the gifts in his life. And his lines are, I suppose there's always somebody who's got it worse than me. Yeah. Okay, so let's time this. Well, I suppose there's somebody who's got it worse than me. Like that girl with the cranky mother. Yeah, that girl. Okay, folks, we're probably talking about 15 seconds here. We're talking about 15 seconds. Now, when it's all said and done, it'll probably be less. But if it's 15 seconds, then the math says that this shot needs to be 120 frames long. So I'll just do it as 120 and see what we get. So I'm rendering it now so that we can see if the timing, or the transition I should say, worked as well as I think it's going to work. If so, then most of the rest of the job is going to be lip sync and slight changes in facial expression. Boom! We render that, which as you can see, it renders pretty quickly. Pretty quickly. Go up here to 308. Let's get this into the show. Boom. Select scene 308, which Krita just created the folders for me. Very, very helpful of Krita to do that for me. And now we grab the shot. As you can see, 120 long shot. Disable any resampling. Go down here. Let's drag this into the show. Get rid of the storyboard image and smack that back together. So now what we're trying to do is see how it plays. Okay. So file, save. So monkey gets busted, stealing nuts. Okay, stop. Might as well fix this right now. Boom. That needs to be edited to about there. This can be removed. This is a marker. This is a holdover from an earlier time. Okay. Okay. Not bad, except you can see, let me look at this. We've got one. Yeah, we've got actually 3 frames. I really think this probably wants to be 2, if not even 1. See, look at that. You see him move, and then boom, he falls into frame. So what I was starting to say earlier is that what the lesson here is not about animation, it's about editing. It's about realizing that how you edit your show is more important. And in this case, there's almost no animation going on at all. This is going to be almost 100% lip sync and then just a very pedestrian animation of the whole shot. I mean, if you want to go Disney, you could. What you do is you go in here and you'd be at 24 frames a second. You'd splay his arms out to catch himself, and he would squunch down and then bounce back up, and you'd be doing all kinds of things with his arms and head and face. And there's nothing wrong with that. For me, this worked pretty well. So there it is. Okay. So this is like all lip sync. Yeah, I suppose there's always someone who's got it worse than me. Okay, so yeah, I forgot. There's one more layer. Very, very important, which is always the mouth. The mouth always winds up on its own layer. So I'm going to take the mouth and just insert a key. Then I'm going to go back to my pencil test, actually, and just to keep things clean, I'm going to hit the G key and the E key and erase his mouth so that the mouth responsibility can then be relegated to the mouth layer. Which, by the way, does also suggest that here we probably need to put a key for the mouth like that. Okay? Typically, the mouth layer is just brought down to about 50% transparency so that it just allows some of the skin tone underneath to bleed through. And that tends to get it to about the right color that it needs to be. So, so now we got a big lip sync job to do. So up on my other screen, I'm going to open my script. Yeah, I suppose there's always somebody who's got it worse than me. I suppose. Okay, let me just correct that. Boom. Whoops. Okay, I'm going to. There's always someone who's got, I'm smashing these together, worse then, whoops, me. Yep. Okay. Not too much activity on the chat, so I assume I'm doing okay. So I'm going to get off of the mouth layer and onto the pencil test layer. Let's make sure we got our pencil selected. Okay. And then my question is, what do we want to do here? Worse than me. Blink. I'm going to put a blink in. Okay, so let's just do this as efficiently as possible. Okay, boom. Okay, so now I think what I want him to do is, like that girl is probably going to happen about here. So I would say let's jump to the mouth layer and just at least get the initial lip sync in as a placeholder. Like, whoa. Okay, interesting. This happened the other day. Interesting. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's a bug in Krita because, and I'm not going to touch my screen because now you guys can see the bug. All right. What's selected down here? Mouth. What's selected up here? Mouth. However, because I was in a cell of the pencil test layer, it inserted the key in that layer. So the reason I call it a bug is if I select the mouth layer and start drawing, it is not going to draw in the mouth layer. It's going to draw in whatever, well, I shouldn't say that. If the pencil test layer is selected and I click in the mouth layer, it will not draw in the mouth layer. It will still draw in the pencil test layer. So if I insert a key, Krita respects the cell based on the layer you happen to click in, like this. But when it comes to drawing, Krita does not respect which cell you've selected. You have to explicitly select the correct layer. I don't know. I'm still a little tossed on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's probably a good thing in the sense that, you know, it's your responsibility to kind of decide what you intended to do, and so, you know, you could debate that, I suppose. Okay, so he says, so let's make sure we're in the mouth layer, I suppose, is the point, right? Let's insert a key. G key, and let me just see, like that. Girl. And we'll give him 3 keys. Okay, so now this is an interesting point. Okay, very, very interesting point about economy in animation acting. Okay, because initially my thinking was I'm going to have him turn to the monkey when he says, like that girl, and then he essentially turns back to the screen, back to this pose, wistfully looking out into space when he says, the second time he says, that girl. So he repeats the line, that girl. But as I'm looking at this, I'm saying, well, is that actually the best strategy? He does the blink, so we still have the sense of life. I think we should keep it as a sequence. Instead of doing a bunch of work animating him moving his head and looking toward the monkey, why don't we have him say the line, boom, bap, bap. Okay, so he's going to actually, right here, I want to be in the pencil test layer. So again, this is just a creative choice. There is no right answer here. But I'm favoring economy. What can I say? So what I'm saying is, let's have him say his line, and then, just with his eyes, notice the monkey. All right, so let's just look at this again. I suppose there's always someone who's got it worse than me. Like that girl. You see what I mean? I mean, that's actually pretty good acting right there. I think maybe we'll just play with this a bit, but boop. And I don't think his eyes would come back down to the ground either. I'm going to just play with it this way. What if let's just play with this a bit. What if we did this? And I'm really going out on a limb on this one, but we'll see. It might just work. I'm going to hit the A key. Just playing around with emotion, really, is what we're doing here. Okay, I think there would be an intermediate step. So, bloom. This is kind of wrong. And this would be a fairly rapid change. So what you have is this kind of a concept of a series of, you have a series of emotional beats. And then what you're trying to do is figure out what feels like you're essentially getting out of your actor what you want to get. But of course you're the actor because you're the animator, right? Okay, and I'm going to actually even do it this way. I'm just going to play with this a bit. And I'm turning on the onion skins, which I almost never do. You'll see why in a minute. I'm going to actually bump that up to there. So, again, it might turn out not to work. My idea is that he's thinking so deeply right now that his eyes are darting around. Okay? This often works in live stage directing too. Simpler is better, and I've often cut lines and scenes according to what the director and actors discover. Well, I tell you, Maria, if you look at my live stream yesterday, I was talking about that very thing, working with actors on the set, because, I mean, as you may or may not know, I've written and directed 8 feature films, and you know, a lot of times when you're working with less capable, you know, local actors, let's say, you know, you really have to coach them a lot. And so, yeah, I was talking actually a lot about that on the live stream. I think it was yesterday. Because the principles are exactly the same. And okay. Not bad. Not sure if it's good, but not bad. Again, just looking for what is the sequence that feels right. What does it feel like he's thinking? Okay, I feel like this needs to be delayed a bit. And there's probably going to want to be a jump cut, honestly, but we'll see. Okay, so what I'm debating is whether the you know, we're indulging Mel's emotions at this point. Okay, so now the question is, am I going too far? Am I giving too much time to just wallowing in Mel's emotion? And I'm suspecting that yes, I probably am. In other words, what's going to happen is I'm going to get this animated, and it's going to look pretty good. It's going to feel pretty good. And when I cut it into the show, I'm going to come back 3 days from now and look at it and go, man, that shot took too long. It didn't. It needed. You know, we made the point. Move on to the next shot. I'm almost sure that's what will happen with this shot. I don't know it to be right or to be true, but I strongly suspect that's exactly what's going to happen. So we'll see. Because I think once he looks at Monkey and his eyes dart a little bit, we kind of get it, okay? We get it. We get, you know, he said, like that girl. Little embarrassed moment, maybe. Okay, I think what we need to do is wrap it up. So I'm going to get rid of these two keys because we don't need him to dart back. We don't need to keep indulging the fact that he's maybe a little embarrassed because there's Monkey right there listening to him muse about his feelings. Okay? Therefore, I'm going to go ahead and put in the line of dialogue right here and see if it's working. Okay? And then I'm going to animate one final move where he goes from this. Let me see. Yeah, he's going to go from this to this. That girl. And I could do them together, like that girl. But as we talked about the other day, from a pure audience sequencing drama standpoint, it's probably better to make it a sequence. So probably he should be going, that girl, as a sequence. I would say 9 chances out of 10 that's going to be better just because it's clearer. You know, it's going to be clearer to the audience if it's a sequence than if you overlap things. You can overlap things, but generally, given a choice, it's probably better to favor a sequence. Okay. You are welcome to disagree. Okay, so I'm going to say that, and I'm going to let these lines drag out a bit. Girl. And I'm allowing his mouth to be a little bit lower on his face so that he looks a little more despondent. Okay. And again, just we'll do it as a sequence, and if I'm correct, then what's going to happen is we're going to wind up with almost exactly right on our timing because we're getting close to the 120 frame range. So what's that going to look like? Oh yeah, by the way, there's something I forgot. And this will be, again, pretty cheap to do. What I was going to do, I'll just put it in here as an indication. What I was going to do, vis-a-vis my earlier discovery, was I was going to take his arm, and while he's musing, I was going to do this. And so I'll do this on like odd frames between the lip sync so it doesn't so it's sort of separate from it, if you will. Hope that makes sense. Again, I'm always saying stuff and not sure if I'm being clear. But I'm just going to stick that in there to indicate what I had in mind. Yeah, and I like the more subtle. I don't have to decide now because ultimately what's going to happen is this will all be inked and painted. What I'll probably do is then take his forearm and cut it to a different layer and then just animate that layer. So this is a really quick, this is a lot of storytelling benefit for a really, really low cost. Just cut that into a different layer and stick it in there. So for now, what I'll do is I'll just actually move these upstream and copy them downstream just so they're in there. I think it helps. Yep, let's just go with it. So what made me bring that up in the first place? Well, if I come down here, what I was going to do is I want to really look at this for a minute. I think what I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to do a two-step tween. You know, again, presumably we're going to be able to take the whole thing as it is, inked and painted, and just go slight turn, slight down, slight turn, slight down. Sorry. I'm going to put in more keys than I need. That way, if I decide I want to take it even further. Darn it. That second key didn't take. Darn it, darn it, darn it. Okay. Slight turn, slight down. So now I'm starting to move fast because I'm getting a little impatient. Krita. Slight turn, slight down. I just want to see how this is going to feel. Okay, I'm not worried about getting everything dialed in because I'm probably going to have to I could kind of show, I suppose, that this shoulder is going to want to compensate back this way a little bit so that it's not moving as much. We'll see. Let's just see how this motion looks. Okay, so we've got a bizarre, ugly, stupid-looking jump in the third key. So I'm being a little ruthless about that because frankly, it's a little embarrassing. That's a pretty stupid mistake right there. You just made a really big mistake very publicly. It happens. All right. So what do we want here? A slight turn, slight down. I'm going to do this one more time. Slight turn, slight down. And I'm going to just try to not make it too big. Okay, that's probably okay. Now in practice, is there maybe a little more work involved? This might be one of those situations that is appropriate to, you know, like your OpenToonz plastic tool or something, because what you really want to do probably here is, let's grab this. Yeah, we'll just grab his hand. And you probably want to splay this out a little bit. Don't know if this is going to work. Gonna try. But yeah, and so then you got to adjust the forearm or the upper arm to match that. So, and then in that case, so again, I'm cutting this into pieces and moving things around just to act as guides, because this will probably have to be redrawn to really make it work. But yeah, all in all, I would say that didn't actually help much. So we'll leave it at that for the moment. Especially because, by the way, there's actually a really, really important point to be made here. Actually, a super huge important point. The fact is, that right here, there probably should have been a jump cut. Boom. Okay, so right here, I'm going to go A key. And I'm going to say probably what should have happened was this jump cut to this, actually. Okay, so obviously that makes the mouth in the wrong spot. But my point is that if that jump cut was in there, then you don't see his elbows. And so therefore, all that matters at that point is this action. And that action looks pretty good. That sells the emotion of what we're trying to do. He's sort of kind of a sigh situation. So I'm not even going to bother to finish that, because I know that once I ink and paint it, what's going to happen is I'm going to resize it here, put in the lip sync, and these frames will become irrelevant. They're just there as a guide, right? So if you were gonna do it, oh hey, and guess what? Krita just blew up. That doesn't happen very often anymore, but it certainly does happen. So we probably just lost a bunch of work, because I don't even remember the last time I saved. So yeah, screw it. It's what happens. It's what happens sometimes. Interestingly, for Krita 4.4.1, which is what I'm using, every single time in the last month or so that it has crashed, it has always been when I'm clicking on a layer. I just really was not thinking just now. So I'm telling you, folks, you're going to be crying for me, I know, but please don't bother to cry. This is not that big of a deal. But there may have been a lot of work just lost, because I just don't remember the last time I saved anything. Yeah. So there you go, folks. Everything from after the first round of dialogue gone forever. So yeah, I had it set to 120 frames, but So I'm going to stop and think about this for a minute. Yeah, because everything I did with his eyes darting around is gone. Okay, so that's okay. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're in the pencil test layer. Oh, freaking well. What did I do? About every third frame. Boom. I'm just going to keep flying forward. This kind of stuff is always way quicker the second time around anyway. So, all right, so I'm going to go S key, A, so it goes to additive mode. And I'm just going to put in a couple keys like that. And I just saw something out of the corner of my eye on the chat, which is probably someone expressing sympathy. No, maybe I didn't. I thought I did. That's funny. Okay, so let's just see. Okay, save our work. I did save it just now. Okay, and then he's going to say, oh, I remember what I did. Wow, I lost a lot of work. There's always someone who's got it worse than me. Okay. Move all these guys downstream. And I'm just going to... I could always go back and look at this video on YouTube to remember what I did, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm just going to keep flying forward. Yeah, Maria, I appreciate that. You know what? It used to really make me mad, but now I'm like, you know what? I've just been down this road so many times, and usually it turns out better when you redo it anyway, and you always redo it in a tiny fraction of the time it took to do it the first time. So it's just like, who cares? It's more opportunity to draw, more opportunity to think. So, okay, so I'm going to have him say, like that girl. And again, save, save, save. All right, so I'm in the mouth layer. I'm going to hit the G key. Like that girl. Okay, now the question becomes, did I want a slight change in attitude? Okay, one little thing here I would say. Boom, there, I know I saw something in the out of the corner of my eye. No, I didn't. That's weird. What am I seeing? Must be seeing, well, maybe I'm seeing things. The girl. Okay, basically, what I'm going to say right here is maybe I'm going to put in another layer right here and call this blush. Because I was kind of thinking about this in the back of my mind when I was doing this the first time around. I don't know if this is a great idea, but I'm going to try it. So I'm going to go just insert a key here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the... This is actually a really good example of where when you go to do something the second time, sometimes you think of a different or a better idea, and it just winds up being a good thing. So Krita is, of course, animates additively if you don't actually insert blank keyframes. So therefore, what I could do is maybe turn this down quite a lot. But so yeah, like I said, this crossed my mind and I didn't really indulge it. Boom. But I think probably that's a good idea. It certainly makes it very, very clear what the heck's actually going on. He's a little embarrassed that he's feeling those sorts of feelings that 15, 16-year-old boys feel. And so let's just kind of review now. I haven't lost too much, truthfully. I've already almost caught up. I just need to deal with that shift in weight. And I've actually I've kind of given myself a bit of a gift here because now I can throw in the jump cut. I'm going to put these earlier. Yeah, so this is no big deal. Boom. Right here, I am going to I'm going to take the blush, because how long did the blush take to do? 3 seconds. So let's just put the blush, bake it down into here. So it's baked into here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the jump cut. And that really drives home the attitude. You know, this boy is thinking. Right? And now we're going to go that girl right there. Okay, so into the mouth layer. Better save my work. Save early, save often, right, folks? G key. Whoa, wrong brush. Z, pencil. Still on the freehand path tool, but you can switch brushes. The freehand path tool. I'm gonna go back 1 frame actually. Boom, boom. That girl. And I wanted to give that 3 frames. And then, again, as a sequence, what I said was, let's go to Mel, grab everything, and what did we do? We said a little turn, a little over, next frame, little turn, little over, next frame, little turn, little over, and I'll give it 4. So we're giving him half a second. And folks, I think other than ink and paint, I think we can probably render this shot out, and it's going to be pretty close to done. There's always somebody who's got it worse than I do. Worse than me. Like that girl. That girl. Okay, this is a little rapid, a little soon. And I think as far as the acting goes, remember the forearm, this little area right here, which is just languishing on screen, that's not going to be there. You know, when I do the ink and paint, that's not going to be there. You can always make a little adjustment of his upper arm as well to keep it aligned. That's why I said something. This is where something like the plastic tool in OpenToonz can definitely be helpful. And then the other thing is I reserve the right to make some slight tweaks on his eyebrows to drive home the attitude. Because frankly, right here, like for example, on this key, maybe at this key, I should go ahead and, you know, begin to have this sort of thing happen, right? And then when we cut to here, probably split the difference to something like that. See what I mean? Okay. Point is, it all works. It's all good. It's there. Thanks, Nuisance Productions. Hey, I've watched your channel a few times. You got some good stuff out there. So let's render this sucker out and cut it into the show. Did I already render this once? I think I did. 308, yeah. So let's go ahead and just re-render 120 frames. And then we'll take a look at how it's looking in the show. So let's transition. Boom. Okay. There it is. Okay, so 309. This is erroneous. We'll get rid of that. That's erroneous. See, this is the pose I was talking about where I turned his head and I decided to change it to just a simple change in his eyes. And so, again, by the way, from a script writing standpoint, you guys will also notice that I'm always bouncing between Mel and Tianara and using whatever's in my script as transitional material. So here, by him saying, there's always someone who's got it worse than me, goes like that girl. Well, who do we cut to next? That girl. So we kind of did the same thing here when she's like, you know, you're free to do this, do that, and the other. And meanwhile, back here, Mel's going, yeah, free to do this, that, and the other. So those kinds of devices are, they're a little bit cheeseball, but they work. And people, it really helps people just really totally get what's going on. So, how many, man, we've got 11 concurrent viewers. That's, I wish I could say I usually have hundreds of thousands of concurrent viewers, but I don't. 11 or 12 is usually about the max, actually. So, thanks everybody for being here. Okay, so straw poll to my audience. Do we want to go back and kind of review the last? It's probably going to be a little bit boring, especially for those who are around a lot. So there's Tianara. She goes through her big thing. Blah, 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 blah. And now we're back here to Mel. Let's just look at the Mel sequence after it transitions to him. Free to do what you want. I gotta do all this work. I guess you're right. Can't remember what his dialogue line is. Hey, but at least we got food to eat. Where'd they go? Oh well. It's always somebody who's got it worse than me. Like that girl. That girl. Married? I love that. This is where she finds out she's getting married. Okay, guys, I'm actually going to end the stream at the... Well, no, I'm not. Hey, let me take a break. Somebody's knocking on the door. Hang on a sec. Now, as expected, that was the postman, and actually the friend of mine who's been probably the most ardent Trumper on Facebook. Sent me a very nice Christmas / New Year's card. That's cool. Good friends. No putting a price on good friends. Okay, so I love that transition. I think that's gonna be great. She just found out she's being married off. So now what have we accomplished here? We got 15 seconds of Mel. Let's just look at our situation. Okay, so this is what we've done. We've got 19 seconds. That probably is pretty close to what one might expect. I've been live streaming for show what we have so far. I can. Do you mean everything? I could maybe scan through. Well, So are you talking about the recent sequence, maybe, or are you talking about the whole thing? The whole thing's pretty long. I guess I'll leave it to you guys if you want to take a vote. Okay, recent. Okay, good. That's probably wiser too. I would say the kind of sort of recent thing, you know, we transition away from Golik, mumbling about what he's going to be up to, and he says he wants to get rid of Asher, you might say he's sort of a prophet. This guy that he sort of comes to the castle and advises the king, and a lot of times that advice kind of runs counter to the mischievous plots of this guy who's like the chief advisor to the king kind of thing. So he says, I've got other fish to fry, and that brings us up to this sequence. Okay, so we see the fish. That's what I was talking about transitions the other day, the other few minutes ago, is that reference to having fish to fry winds up turning into a fish in the river, and that becomes a transitional device. So Mel's on the river doing laundry. I hope this isn't too much to recap for you guys. If so, he's kind of bumming because he's got homework he's got to do. How does this even make sense? And then Monkey comes along. Oh, hey, little buddy. Got homework? Yeah, okay, buddy. Can't remember his exact line of dialogue. I always like it when I haven't watched it in a while. I go back and I see little things that actually make me laugh. It's always fun when that happens. So you guys can kind of see what's gone wrong here, thanks to Monkey, who's tormenting poor Mel. And and then he realizes that he's soiled Asher, the prophet, the guy that's like the annoyance to the king, is his caretaker, okay? So he realizes that he got ink all over Asher's robe. Ah, he'll never miss it. That's that. Job well done. Oh, Melchizedek. Oh, hey, Asher. How'd it go with the king? Oh, he'll never listen to me. I see a mistake there in the alignment of the mouth. So he asks Mel if he got the laundry done, if he got my ceremonial robe clean. That's what he's asking here. And Mel's like, did it by any chance have a red stripe? That's the one. That's like what you always used to see in Seinfeld when Seinfeld would say, Newman. You weren't thinking about that girl again, were you? And then, of course, it transitions to the girl. Okay, so here's Tianara. This is the most recent stuff. So Tianara, Balder, I don't know what you'd call him, sort of a henchman of her mother, is kind of making fun of Tianara because Tianara got in trouble earlier in a scene that I'm not going to go back to. And Balder's not like the nicest guy ever. He makes another comment, and you'll be sorrier soon enough, because Balder knows what's coming, which is that Tianara is going to be married off. Now, what Tianara doesn't know is she's actually being married off to the prince. Now, you would think, whoa, that's not too bad, because, see, her mother, this lady, owns all the lands in the north where the drought is not happening, and Golik, who's the assistant to the king, who's the bad guy, is cousins to this woman. So he's trying to craft a marriage that would actually give him indirectly a claim to the crown. So she's like, yeah, you can sing. You're a bird. You're free as a... And then she stops herself and says, haha, well, obviously you are a bird. She meant to say free as a bird, and she stopped herself because, duh, it is a bird. But the point is, you're free to do what you want, go where you want, wear what you want, and then it fades to Mel going, yeah, you can do what you want. I'm stuck here doing all this work. So I would say, as I'm reviewing this myself, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I mean, I think that the pacing, the timing of it, I'm speaking editorially now, not talking about the animation per se. I mean, I'm feeling like, yeah, this is humming right along. It's going to be a fun show. And so this brings us basically up to the current period where, just for the fun of it, I'm kind of switching from doing finished art to pencil tests, mainly because yesterday I took a straw poll and said, hey guys, what do you want me to do? Pencil test or finish out the current shot? Cool, thanks Maria, appreciate that. Well, what you learn to do is you learn to write that stuff into your script. You really begin to plan for it. So, but this is actually speaks to why I always tell people, instead of agonizing over what software to use, just get busy, do something, finish something. Because what I've learned as a filmmaker, it took me basically 1, 2, 3, 4. It took me 5 films to get to the point where I actually could make a film that was kind of sort of pretty good. And it took me about 7 films, yeah, I'd say 7, to get to the point where I could make a film that really was pretty darn good. Okay, it really truly took. And I look at the creative process like building muscle, which I'm well acquainted with because I've been pumping iron every day since New Year's Day 1983. And it is like building muscle. You can only do it so fast. So the best thing you can do is just do it. Do it and do it badly, and do it badly as much as possible, as fast as possible, so that you begin to learn and internalize how to do it well. And I'm literally, even after all these many years, I'm literally right now learning how to do the same thing in animation. And of course, as part of that process is I'm developing some pretty strong opinions about what I think works, because at the end of the day, it is up to me. I have to decide what I think looks good. Um, and hopefully adhere to reasonably high standards. I think that's an important point too. It's actually a really important point. You know, this is a cartoon for the distributor's initial. I'll actually do a couple things here while I'm blabbing, but the distributor's initial concept was more targeting like 2 to 8 year olds. Okay, so I made a command decision on my own to say, well, Dave, who's the distributor's name, I like your idea, but I'm not going to target 2 to 8 year olds. I'm going to target more like 8 to 15 year olds, and hopefully, kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender, I would hope that I can um, create something that the parents can enjoy as well. Okay, so that was just a choice I made. Hey, Amar, um, that was just a choice I made, and gosh, what was my point? I guess I really can't do 2 things at once. um, oh, my point was that if you look at the cartoon, um, if you're looking for, if you're looking for Disney style, then you're gonna go, well, this isn't that great, and you're right, because it's not Disney style. It's very much calculated to be appropriate to both the audience and the budget level that is available to create the property. It just is what it is. Um, I'm actually pretty confident that if I really tried and wanted to create, you know, super cool full 24 frame per second animation, I'm pretty sure I could do it. Um, but so what? you know, it would take a lot longer, that's for sure. Okay, so here's the thing. I have to be a little careful here. The way her eyes are, I don't think the shot should start up this way. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to just jump this forward. And I'm going to actually hit insert. And let's go ahead and add a frame so that we can save this. So what I want to do is I'm just going to kind of feel the timing here. So I think younger children can absorb. I agree with you completely, Maria. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. That was the other reason I wanted to skew a little bit older. Because if you take a bunch of 3 or 4 or 5 year olds and put them in the room with some other people that are watching, Avatar or whatever, something of that nature, everybody enjoys it if the characters in the story are fun. There's a little music in the background to keep it moving along, blah, blah, blah. No, I think you want to always give youngsters more credit, not less, and you do not want to play down to them. I am really, really strong on that point. Okay, so okay, I'm gonna work backwards now. I'm gonna go boom, kind of taking what I did yesterday when I was animating. I had a really weird experience yesterday where I had this sequence with the head turn. I probably should show what I'm talking about. Okay, let me do this real quick. Okay, so yesterday it was really kind of weird because I was animating this. Some of you were maybe here, but what I found when I was animating it was once I got the keyframes in, and this is I better save this and I'll make a change here. I'll drag this back so I get the whole shot in there. When I drew these keys, so there were like 8 keyframes, I found that if I just actually started sketching and boom, like boom, 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 I was just toggling through the frames and just sketching as it was moving almost, you know. And I was kind of surprised by how easy it was to nail it. I think maybe because it was going by so fast. That would be my guess. I'm not really sure. But it worked a lot better than I expected. So that's basically what I'm kind of seeing here is, but there's a couple things I want to do. I want to go, first of all, I want to draw an eye line. I'm going to just do this in blue so that it's not the main color. So I'm doing the same thing again. I'm going to say, let's go. Okay, so at 8 frames a second, this like the animation I did yesterday, this is going to be too long of a transition, I guarantee you. So I'm going to drag this key back to here. So now we've only got 4 keys. All right? See how that's really too slow? I think we really only want 1 key. So if we're going to favor easing in, then what would actually happen is basically this. Whoops. Control-Shift-X to get rid of that key, and it would be boom. Married. Okay. So now the question becomes, can I draw T and R? All right. Let's just draw an X here, and I'll just kind of block in a little bit of, you know, there's the little thing on her forehead, forehead, forehead. Okay, so again, at 8 frames a second, I'm just finding that things look best when I tend to favor easing in, which means you got these 2 extremes. So you're going back 1 frame to put the tween in, but the tween doesn't favor the destination. It favors the starting point. So the change from the starting point to the tween is very small, and then there's a big jump to the land. And boom, that's what you get. Okay? So that's just kind of what I've been sort of learning about operating at 8 frames a second. So now I'm going to squeeze in here and just kind of give this a slight 3/4. Let's redo that. I think this is slightly too narrow. Whoops. B key, Control-Shift-A, so don't want to be in erase mode. Okay, so there's got to be a little surprise in her eyes here. This is actually kind of weird because my proclivity is probably to draw more realistically, so I have to actually be careful to remember that, you know, we're trying to draw cartoons here. So I'm going to give a little bit of this eye action. Boom, bah, boom, bah. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is actually, since we know we're going to favor our starting point, and this is where we want to land, okay, let's hit the 5 key. And I'm going to redo this tween, and I'll probably wind up redoing it a bunch of times. I'm just going to move it a little, rotate it a little, and then we'll say, you know what, maybe we'll just use the liquify tool here to, maybe there would be a little bit of this going on. But remember, this is going to be on the screen for 1 frame. This is a short tween. So, as I like to say, we can get away with murder on this tween. Now, if I was really going to try to make this right, I would probably want to center up her eyes like that. So we can probably do that and call it good. Okay, so like that, and then that gets us to here where her eyes are going to pop way open, and then we've got to kind of get back to the more proper characterization. Obviously, when I drew this particular storyboard drawing months and months ago, I was a little bit, I really wasn't drawing her correctly. Okay, stop. If you start drawing in Krita and nothing happens, it's almost always because of this. There was a selection somewhere that you didn't know about, and as you can see, there you go. That's the problem. So I want to hit Control-Shift-A to get rid of the selection. So now this is going to be kind of an interesting and important shot because I've got to modify her characterization here on the fly. So what is there about this drawing that I know is correct versus really needs to be fixed? Her overall anatomy is probably a little out of whack, but I think her face is definitely a little bit short, and it makes her look too much like a 8-year-old or something. So, and then so similarly, her mouth should be much lower on her face. So she's saying married. Yep, that's working. So okay, so maybe at the start there would definitely be a little bit more consternation on her expression. And that actually might be fun if we enter the shot, especially if there's a slight camera move going on. If there was a slight push in, and then maybe what we do is let's just say, let's duplicate this key twice. I think this will work quite well. I'm going to take this, and I'm hitting the A key so that we're adding to the selection. Okay. I kind of wish the selection wouldn't remember where it got moved to, because actually it'd be easier if it was the same every time. But I'm going to just delete those actually, and then hit the B key, go like that. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see if I can put a little bit of a okay, yeah, I like that, but it's the whole reaction's happening way too soon. So what would really happen is we'd enter the scene. There you go. There's your scene right there. Okay, so you're going to enter the scene, give it 1/2 of 1 second to, to let the audience digest the new shot that we just entered into, Then have the reaction. Open. Okay, so boom, boom. Let me check something here. Okay, so you can see right now the expression is wrong, yet we're on frame 1. Why is that? Because Krita has not cached those animation frames. I need to hit the place. Actually, this is a slightly buggy behavior because, as you can see, Krita's insisting on not caching the animation frames. Well, it looks like we're okay, actually. So I guess we're okay now. But I wish Krita was a little smarter about that. Okay. So she's going to say married. All right, so let's go 1 frame ahead. Let's just erase this stuff. By the way, we probably should save. And then can we, I guess the key question here is, can we just reuse this? It would probably be really wise to do so, honestly. If we can. So let's turn the onion skins back off because usually they're more annoying than helpful. So we enter. Married? Okay, whoa, that was way too freaking fast. And by the way, the positioning. Okay, I would say this. I think maybe she's going to get to here, but not exactly right away. So, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm going to say, let's just see if the timing on the, no, we don't actually need this. What we need to do is get the lip sync in there. So I'm going to just go G key. Let's get that in there so that we can kind of feel the emotion. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of a, this is one of those things where we've got to be really careful that we don't get too far off character here. This, so how do you get from this to this? It doesn't even look like the same person. Believe me, if you're out there thinking that, I get it. I know that. I'm well aware. This is simply an exaggeration, and we've got to get from this back to this. And the best way to do that, I think, would be here. We need to get rid of these googly eyes. Okay, so you see a little bit too much. Let me actually liquefy this. Let me just kind of stretch things around a bit. B key. Okay, so you're seeing this. Yeah, I see what the issue is. This I should probably just fix it this way. There we go. Yeah, this makes her, again, it's because when I drew the original storyboard, I just drew her looking a little too young. Okay, and for the record, there's no good reason to get to this pose. I'm going to leave that back out because it's creating the feeling that I need to determine why she gets to that pose when there's actually nothing in the script that says she should get to that pose at all. So it's cleaner and simpler to just take it out. And let's just, you know, as I like to say, going from the known to the unknown, if I am careful here, let's recapture her characterization. Control Shift iteration. And it, okay, that wasn't exactly spectacular, but let me check the script. I want to see what happens after this shot. This is kind of important, actually. Okay, so we got that girl, and then she says married. Oh, and then it just cuts to her mother. Her mother says, "Isn't it wonderful?" So that's good. That's actually super good because that means I can do what I had in mind here just a moment ago, which is going to be, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put these, her pupils and irises in there. And obviously those are not aligned correctly. Probably something more like that. Hitting the S key and selecting this. And then what I want to do is, we're going to have to let her hair settle, I suppose. But what I want to do is kind of the same thing I did with Mel a moment ago. Or a while ago, I should say. So what's going to happen is you're going to just see this expression, and then it's going to go to cut to her mother. Now, when I flip this, this is actually really embarrassing. That now I flip this and look how out of kilter we are. We're pretty badly out of kilter. So that's not at all. That's quite balanced. Everything's looking good till we get to here. And let me see if this is. No, this is actually pretty good too. So it's really just the eyes. I just really screwed up the eyes. You know, other than, I guess, let me redo the eyes, but you could argue that maybe the her chinny chin's kind of causing the problem here. So that's why you flip your canvas. File, save everything. By the way, all right, there should not be a selection right now. And so GE. So what I'm doing actually is I'm taking things out. I'm going to keep taking things out until the frame looks good and doesn't look imbalanced anymore. And I think I'm there. Okay, so now BE. And now I want to just, this is what I want to get right. Yeah, that's better. Okay, and there is a little bit of a problem right here as well, actually, now that I notice this. Okay, that's probably a lot better. Just wasn't balanced. It was looking a little lopsided. So checking the messages. Darren says, flipping the canvas still amazes me how much difference it makes how your drawings look. I know. I don't realize how bad I suck until I flip my canvas. It's really true, and you just got to be honest about it. The fact is I make really bad mistakes a lot of the time. Absolutely happens all the time. Well, the nice thing is the hotkeys in Krita are such that you've got M left arrow, for lack of a better term. It's not really the arrow, it's like the less than, greater than, and then the question mark. Well, those 4 keys are quite useful because M flips the canvas, less than jumps to the previous keyframe, greater than jumps to the next keyframe, and the question mark, which is also the slash key, toggles between the last 2 brushes that you've used. So I find that last one's not as useful. Lately, I tend not to use it that much. It'd be nice actually if it toggled between the brush and the freehand path tool, because that's actually what I'm doing all the time. Like all the time. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I will try to maintain some continuity by using the previous frame as the guide for this one. And I suspect that's going to help. Yeah. Yep. And then all I got to do is animate the eyes. I don't really even need to do that right now, but I guess I'll put in a couple just as a bit of a guide. So I'm going to go Shift. Is it Shift? Yeah, Shift. You can hit the A key as well. Actually, that's not true. I changed the hotkeys because I thought the ones that they chose were not that great. So I'm rambling here a bit, but what I'm trying to say is that the selection tool, S key selection tool, by default in Krita, and I thought this was a really bad mistake. It did not used to work this way, but the way it works now is if you hit the selection tool, by default, if you then hit the A key, it does not switch to the translate tool, which is always what I want to do. I want to grab a selection and then move it, right? And by default in Krita with recent versions, if you use a selection and then hit the A key, what it actually does is switch it into additive mode so that all you do is add to the current selection, which I rarely do. What I've been doing it right here with the eyes. Actually, eyes are like almost the only time I find myself wanting to add to a selection. It happens, but it's not that frequent. So I had to go in and change the hotkeys so it would go back to the way I prefer. And it happens that if you select, and this makes sense to me, if you select something and then hit Shift, then you're adding to the selection. For me, that makes sense. Other people may disagree, right? So, all right. So let me see here what we have. Rewind. So we're going to enter this shot. Kind of weird because this one I like. So maybe I should just duplicate this. I'm going to check something here. I'm going to go to a different layer. I'm going to hit Control, drag, and I'm going to drag this keyframe over here. And then on this layer, I'm going to rotate this. yes, you can see that the eyes are definitely in a different position. I am going to take this key, put it here, and even though I've already done it twice, I'm actually not going to do it. I'm not going to animate her eyes. I'm going to save that for later after it's inked and painted. Go ahead and delete this layer. It doesn't need to be in there. Save my work. Come on, we don't want to be in erase mode right now. Yep, right about there. Okay, so like I said, I'm not going to bother animating her eyes because I know exactly what I'm going to do when the time comes to do it, and it's just stupid to keep doing it. What I'm doing is I'm animating the eyes. It's actually a good lesson. I'm going to explain this. There's a lesson here. It's a mistake you're going to make as an animator if you're not careful. Okay, so look at what just happened here a few minutes ago. This is actually a super important lesson, so pay attention, class. Here's the deal. I just animated her eyes darting around by just grabbing her eyes and darting around. And the attitude in the animation of the eyes was correct. It's like a frightened thing where you're kind of going like this, except your head's not moving, it's just your eyes. Okay, so the attitude in that was fine. But what actually has just happened here twice in a row is I animate the eyes, and then I step back and I look at the whole face and I realize that the characterization of the whole face is wrong. Now, you could have solved this to a degree by having the eyes on a different layer. I get that. But my point is, look at what happened. I animated the eyes, and my focus on doing that, which is pretty easy to do, distracted me from the actual problem at hand, which is that she doesn't look like herself. So I wind up erasing the eyes, and I redraw her. Then I animate the eyes. The eyes are working. Then I realize there's still something wrong with her. I redraw her again. Actually copied from an earlier frame and made a modification. What's the takeaway? What's the danger that you face as an animator? It's that you're going to use the fact that you've animated these frames over here with her eyes darting. You go, wow, that looks so cool. That looks so cool. And that is going to excuse the fact that the actual character you drew, that it's a sucky drawing. You're going to overlook the flaws because, and this is the problem with animation as a pursuit, I think, to some degree. Animators have the tendency to get sucked into thinking that flaws can be excused by motion. If we just make things move around, wow, that looks really cool. No, actually it doesn't. Just moving things around doesn't make it cool. Yes, you need to move things around, but actually the more important thing by far, by an order of magnitude, the important thing here is being on character. If she's on character, you could decide not to animate the eyes at all, and the shot would actually still work. It'll be better if the eyes dart, but the shot would still work. But if she's not on character, but the eyes are darting, does the shot work? No, because the audience is going, wait a minute, that's not even the same person. I'm dramatizing, this dynamic of what can go wrong for animators because I've been guilty of it myself. One of the biggest mistakes we can make is to think that moving things around is good storytelling. It's not. There's a lot more time in your show where things aren't moving than when things are moving. And by the way, that's what life is about. It's about contrast. It's the difference between the fact that things are fairly still, and then when they move around, it matters. You notice it. It jumps out. If things are moving like crazy all the time, it just looks stupid. And by the way, it doesn't look real either. That's what I was saying yesterday about what you still see it today in game animation. So I'm going to make the point again. In game animation, when you've got a character that's like an extra in the scene that's just standing there, they never stand there. Real people actually stand there. What they do in games is they go like this. They float around. And you ask yourself, well, why is that? Why would they do that? They do it because the people that created the game, that had that role in creating that extra that goes in the game, are being paid to do what? Animate. And they're going out on a sound stage and they're doing motion capture. They've got a motion capture person in a suit. They do all that, and they feel like the person needs to move, because otherwise, what are we paying you for, right? So there's this kind of warped economic driver that causes the creativity to go stupid. And then what happens, hopefully, in the good cases, is the director comes along and looks at what they did and goes, "Hey guys, that looks stupid. You know, okay, I get you're being paid to animate, but the truth is, to tell the story well and for it to look good, the guy shouldn't be like, no, I'm not standing here right now going like this while I talk to you. I'm not in constant motion." This gets back to Maria's point about sequencing and acting. Acting is, we go from here to here, there's a hold, and every motion is clear. I raise my pen, I turn it, I go from here to here, there's a hold. I give my audience time to digest it. Really crappy animators, which is most of the people that are like hopping on YouTube and posting something they did in Blender or whatever, this is what that animation would look like when they do it. Number one, it's going to go by too fast, and number two, it's going to be in constant motion. Because if they just get the thing in position and leave it sit there, why, that doesn't take any talent. It's the opposite. The real talent is in knowing when not to have things moving around. So anyway, again, end of lecture. Okay, so let's consider a couple things here. I'm going to go ahead and put this on another layer. And let's just play around a bit with her body language. I'm going to say her head is sort of cocked a little bit, right? It's cocked to the side. And by the way, she would have her head covering on, because these poor girls in this culture always had to have their head covering on. It was not the most enlightened time, I must say. And by the way, that's going to be the topic of one of the episodes, I'm sure of it. Women's rights, that sort of thing. That's why I said I'm going to quit talking about the socio-political conversation. Now that the election's over, you know what? Everything's going to calm down. If I have something to say, I think I'll say it through one of my stories. Okay, so I better save my work. Boom! Alright. And honestly, yeah, I would say, I think I can just, I'm not even going to try to make this accurate to, I'm not going to try to make it clean, I guess I should say. I'm just going to get it around there. Just enough to indicate what's going on. And I just blew it. Strike it. Strike it. Back, back, back. What went wrong? Anybody in the class want to tell me what went wrong? Anybody know what just went wrong? You guys have 10 seconds to weigh in and tell me what just went wrong. It's a Krita thing. Oh, time's up. What went wrong is I didn't insert a keyframe on the first frame of my layer. And so because of that, and this is a good thing, by the way, in Krita, that means on layers that don't have an animation keyframe, you can go forward to any point in time and make changes, and those changes will just, you know, stay the same. I mean, it's not going to insert a bunch of animation keys. So, like a silly goose, whoops, okay, hold on. I don't actually, Krita, it's a good thing I just saved my work. It's a good thing I just saved my work. Krita is way more stable than it used to be, but it's not 100%. And usually it's got something to do with layers. I actually haven't been able to figure out exactly what the issue is that causes it to go haywire. So I've got to look up here at, so this is 312. 312, is that right? Yep, 312. So yeah, fortunately, ever since that crash earlier, I've been saving, saving, saving constantly. So as you can see, there's still not a keyframe here. So we go Control Insert. And so the thing I needed to change was right here. I want to actually make a selection of her shoulders and stuff like that. Just wanting to really have this be a head move. Okay, so let's play it. Married? Okay, and then obviously this is way too... Okay, this is actually... I don't even know why that's in there. Boom, gone. Married? Yeah, that'll work. I can make that work. Okay, this is... I'm reading Maria's comment. Something I'm dealing with in my project. There's a sequence with weaving on a loom. And this is a point about simplicity of movement is a very good reminder. Oh, I appreciate that. And really... You know, and that's why I took out the keyframe just now. Yeah, was it an interesting change in expression? Yes. But did it do anything at all to help the storytelling? Nope. Screw it. Get, you know, ruthlessly remove. Married? Okay, so there's going to be a little bit of difference with the mouth. So I guess this there should be another key there. But only... let me see. Let me see. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. GE. Okay, stop. Okay, I am on the wrong layer. Same thing I always do. I'm always drawing on the wrong layer, and I'm supposed to be in erase mode. Whoa. Let's try it that way. Married. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually move this key way downstream and move this one back here, make a duplicate, and then just change the mouth here. I want to see what happens if I switch to the other mouth shape and change her face at the same time. Yeah, I think that's going to look better when I just did it live like that with the keys, the hotkeys. I'm pretty sure this is going to look better. So boom, boom, boom. Okay, cool. Married. And then I would say A key, liquefy. Let's liquefy this just a little bit. And smack that back up just to see if that helps. Married. Okay. Don't like the face, the mouth. Probably my own fault because I was zoomed in so close that I sort of lost my perspective. That can happen. You want to be really careful. If you're going to zoom in, make sure that you're drawing what you intended to draw, because it's really easy to lose track of the rest of the shot. The rest of the drawing, I should say, probably. Excuse me. Okay, cool. That's better. And I'm really making that a bit of an exaggerated expression. Okay. So this did not work. I think we only want the crazy look on there for one frame, and I think the fact that there's a little bit of a change in characterization, I would suspect that the audience will forgive, as long as we've got good continuity in most stuff here. Because again, this is a deliberately exaggerated expression for a reason. So let's look at it. Actually, you know what? I don't remember if I cut this into the show already. Let me hit Control R, and it looks like 312 is not. So let's cut it into the show and see how it's flowing. One of the vexing things about animation is you really can't... Okay, I didn't really want 100 frames, but that's okay. No matter how hard you try, I don't think that it would ever be appropriate. If you're really, really meticulous, you can do it. Do what? Do this. Do all your animation shots and know in advance how the edit's going to work. Yes, you can do it. I mean, the Warner Brothers guys, when they were doing Bugs Bunny cartoons, they planned out their entire episode, and these are 8-minute episodes, but they planned them out right down to the frame. And I'm pretty sure this is true, that those cartoons were edited at the writing stage, at the storyboard, at the animation stage. Everything about the editing was baked into the animation. I can't do that. I'm just, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm not that good. So for me, I would say probably for most people, looking at your edited show in tandem with your, your animation work is probably a really, really good idea. I like to see how things are chopping together, editing-wise. Okay, so I'm going to select this in the project media list, and then there's what I was actually looking for. And this is obviously way too long. So I'm going to just guess that maybe about there is going to be what I want. So let's chop that into the show. He says that girl. Okay. Okay, I don't think it's working, so this goes right to what I said. And it just always seems to be the case that less is more. And all of this was unnecessary. Once it's cut into the show, folks, I'm joking. I'm not joking. Once it's cut into the show, we're going to start at about here. All this is useless. All that extra acting. And this is useless. This is only a distraction. This did not help the shot at all. It looks cool for an animator, but in terms of visual storytelling, absolutely didn't work for me. I mean, you may disagree out there, but I don't think so. So I'm going back to the show, and you'll see we're entering late, and we're leaving early. And that's a basic rule of acting and editing, by the way. Enter a scene, and to be clear, I'm talking about writing. When you're writing your screenplay or your short film or whatever it is, your animation, whatever you're doing, one of the rules you want to apply to your screenwriting, okay, see you, Darren, is enter as late as possible, leave as early as possible. Don't put a bunch of extemporaneous crap, let's say, into your scene. Trust your audience. Thanks, Darren. Trust your audience and keep it to the essentials, because this is a really common mistake with amateurish screenwriting, is they tend to put in way too much backstory. Hey, Steve, thanks. I appreciate that. Amateur screenwriters, inexperienced, tend to put in way too much backstory. They set everything up. They want to explain everything to the audience. The point is, you can leave a lot of questions completely unanswered for the audience to the point where it's actually fairly confusing. You can do that as long as you answer them. Okay? You can set something up that's very confusing as long as it gets paid off and you answer it. If you set something up in your screenplay and it just never gets addressed and kind of gets forgotten, that's a pretty crummy screenplay. It's really weird, because I've seen this to be the case, that even children will look at a movie that was badly written and they can tell it's not a very good movie. They can't tell you why. They can't tell you what's wrong with it. But they just can feel it, that it's just not good. One of the better compliments I've gotten with my films is that even though they're obviously modestly budgeted films, they tend to bring the audience in and keep them moving right through the story. You know, they tend to keep you sucked in and enjoying the show. So you can sort of criticize some of the production values to a degree. I mean, I tend to get more production value on the screen than most people, you know, for the cost. But, you know, it's definitely still modestly budgeted. If you guys don't know what the heck I'm even talking about, let me show you. Because actually my distributor has a YouTube channel, and all of my films are actually right here on YouTube. So this was supposed to be, sorry guys, let me do this again. So if you are on YouTube and you go to and by the way, if you're like really not into the Bible thing, believe me, I will not be offended. This distributor distributes. Okay, so there we go. All right, I was waiting for this to reconnect. So here, I believe you could say Healed, and you'll probably see both my films. Yeah, so actually you can watch both of them. Healed by Grace 1, Healed by Grace 2. Okay, so this movie, both of these films were made for a complete total out-of-pocket cost, actual cost to make the film, of $8,000, almost exactly $8,000 actually, and all of that money went to the actors. Okay, I would argue this is the better film, and I actually was in this one. I gave myself a role, but this is probably the better film. It was the most recent one. This is the one that made a lot of money, and that's because at the time it came out, there was a really what you had to just and I'll kind of show you. You can see some of the a sense of the production value. You know, a little slow-mo or whatever, but so it's a drama. It's like a family drama thing, and at the time this came out, this is the dancer. That's actually my daughter played that role, but you know, she's hitting a pretty low point there. She's trying to she had a car accident, and actually she's trying to go back and force herself to dance the way she used to, and she just can't do it, and it's like a pretty heartbreaking situation. So anyway, the point is that at the point this came out, there was a pretty vibrant retail marketplace for those types of films. That so what you'd have is you'd get a soccer mom that would go to the store, like the Christian bookstore, and buy a DVD for their 13-year-old daughter. That's basically the market that film was targeting, and you know, and so it really did well. And then about 6 years ago, that entire market sector literally went bankrupt. All the major players in that field went belly up, and the retail marketplace disappeared. Crazy stuff. But you can look at those here on YouTube, and you can kind of get a feel for, you know, what, at least the work I've done. You know, I mean, again, there's plenty to criticize. They're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. They are modestly budgeted films, but it's totally my work. I mean, I wrote them, directed them to a degree, acted in them, wrote the musical score, did all the editing, you know, with a little help from my friends, but mostly I just, you know, did it all. So might kind of sort of show what I'm capable of from a storytelling standpoint. So I'm trying to bring that same sensibility, obviously, now to animation. That's kind of what I'm doing, right? So I think I'm going to stop there. It's been a pretty long stream here. Yeah, we're pushing 3 hours. I'm not going to do ink and paint on this, and I don't want to get into a new shot right now. I'm kind of like ready for a break. So 3 hours, file, save. I'm going to jump back up to the edit here and see what I have accomplished. That was only this, unfortunately, unfortunately that shot's only 2 seconds long. So what I've actually done today isn't like amazing. 17 seconds of show in 3 hours. So actually, to tell you the truth, folks, that is completely consistent with what I've been finding. I've actually been finding consistently what I can do is about 5 seconds of finished animation per hour. Now, obviously this is not finished animation. When I've been doing finished animation, for what it's worth, it still seems to come out to about 5 seconds per hour. So that means I would have to broadly say right now, I'm not saving much time by not doing the ink and paint. I'm actually probably costing myself time. Because, let me just look at this. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you very clearly why. Like this shot, the only thing that gets animated basically is the monkey's head. So, in the time it takes me to tighten up the drawing, I probably could have just went ahead and did it as blocks of color and put outlines around it. You know what I'm saying? So I really, as I'm looking at this, I'm going, yeah, I'm not really saying. And see, these shots right here were just done. I mean, I could see what I needed to do, so I just drew the shapes of color and then put outlines around them, right? So maybe it's a little slower to do finished animation, but I don't know, not much. If I wasn't doing this as pencil tests, I probably wouldn't have done this tween right here. I suspect, knowing me. So for that reason, I'm kind of glad I did it this way. That shot will be really fast to do. Coloring and ink and paint's gonna be pretty fast on that shot. Super fast. That one, the ink's done. Here. Yeah, so, you know, you live and learn. I'm living and learning. Constantly refining and tweaking the process, but that's all good. So anyway, with that, I think I shall wrap it up, I say. And thanks, everybody, for hanging out. There's only 6 of you now. But as you know, there will be more later. I'll probably be back later today, if the truth be known. But we will see. But one way or another, as I say, there will be more later.